The Garmin Index scale is a fairly new breed of connector scale that provides not only information that you'd normally expect from a scale, like your weight obviously, but tries to provide additional information around things like your body mass, bone mass, water percentage, etc. I was particularly interested when the Garmin scale was announced because I'm fairly wedded to the Garmin ecosystem. Now, whilst I'm not a great fan of Garmin Connect, I do use Strava, but everything comes in via Connect because I've got various different Garmin devices, such as my Garmin 800 and my Vivo Active. One thing that I've really struggled with is weight management over the years, and I wanted something that was going to help motivate me to keep on top of my weight control program without the need for me having to write down in a book every day or log it manually. So I was very keen that when the Garmin Index scales came out, and I have to say I've had them now for about a month, and I'm pretty happy with them, to be honest. The first thing to note is that when you receive the scales, you set them up and connect them to to your Connect service, so they're obviously linked, and you connect them to your Wi-Fi. Basically, every morning when I get on the scales, it detects who I am, and the detection is done by both the frequency that you use the scales, but also your weight and stuff like that. So it kind of has a good guess as who you are. It's not completely scientific, but if it guesses wrong, you do have the option to shuffle to a different person on the scale itself by just tapping it to scroll to the next person. Once you're happy that it's you that's on the scale, as I said, it measures your weight and then all your other body kind of critical metrics, if you like, and then it passes all of that information through the Wi-Fi to your Garmin Connect system, which you can then review on your Garmin Connect app. So I'm going to show you on the Garmin Connect app what that looks like, and within the Garmin Connect app you have the option to have it as one of your sort of landing screens. So I'm just going to fire up the app and show you what that looks like. Right, so as you can see here, and I don't mind sharing my stats with you because at least they're going in the right direction. I've got every day that I've stood on the scales. I've got my weights there as the main metric. I've got my body fat there, and I've got the loss against the previous day. And as I said, you've got the graph there showing the daily tracking of my weight. If I tap into the weight itself, then the Connect program shows all of my vitals in there, including my weight, my BMI, my goal. So if I've set a goal, my body fat percentage, my body water percentage, my muscle mass, and my bone mass. Okay, and then what I can do is I can flick through days if I want to go into detail about a specific day or what have you. One of the key benefits for me about the index scales, as I said, is the ease of tracking your various statistics. Previously, the scales I had, I set a number of times a log to try and log my weight. I had an app on my phone to do it, but you know, invariably I don't take my phone into the bathroom with me, so then I'd get on the scales and I'd forget to log it, and really I wasn't really keeping on top of my weight management at all, and I had no real sense about whether it was going in the right direction or whether I was fluctuating or whatever. So for me, the predominantly beneficial thing about these scales is that automatic logging, that I just have to get on the scales. 10 seconds later I can jump in the shower and I know that all of that data has gone successfully and been logged, and I can track it and look at the data there. I've had some questions about the metrics that come out of the scales, how are all the metrics calculated and stuff like that, and to be honest, I'm no sort of physiologist or scientist in that regard. The only thing I can say is it does seem to me that the scales are fairly consistent in that regard. I don't get wildly fluctuating statistics or metrics. It does seem to be based around some sort of weight, and when you set up the scales themselves, you have to obviously put your height in and your age and things like that. So probably there are some kind of preset profile algorithms that are in there already. So I don't know how much of it is being taken from the sensors, and I don't know how much is just done through sort of standard profiling. I'm afraid I'm not the right person to ask in that regard. But having said that, I'm not 100% clear on all of these different metrics anyway, and how I can control things like water percentage and body mass and all these sort of things. So the way I generally use it, and I suspect that a lot of people who are not massively into this sort of area will use it, is to just obviously keep an eye on weight predominantly, and then just make sure all the other metrics are sort of going in the right direction as well. And for that, I would suggest that these scales are pretty good. They cost around 120, 130 quid, which is a little bit of a premium to pay for a pair of scales, but to be honest, the benefit I've already had from a month's worth of usage is pretty, you know, I'm pretty happy with that, and I think they're going to last a long time. They're nice and sturdy. I'll show you some product images in a minute, and they're nice and bright and easy to read. So I'm very happy with the scales. The only other thing I'd say is that you have to have bare feet when you get on the scales, and so for me that does indicate that they are using sensors within the surface of the scales to draw information out that is informing those additional metrics that I showed you earlier. Other than that, I can't think of any other negatives. I mean, I'm not, as I said, I'm not a great fan of Garmin Connect. I certainly don't use it on the web very much. I do use it on my mobile simply to keep track of my steps and for logging other activities and things like that. So I can live with it. I'd much prefer it if I was able to export that data into another package, or if Strava, for example, started doing weight management and have that information passed to Strava, so I could have all of that in there. But as it is, it doesn't, and it's fine. I can learn to live with Connect, and it is improving with time. Yeah, so here are some product shots of the scales themselves. So these are the scales themselves. As you can see, I went for the white one. You can get them in black as well. If I just flick it onto the I'll just flick it onto the underside. You can see a couple of buttons there, which is a reset button in case you need to reconfigure the Wi-Fi or anything like that, and the units. So you've got stones, pounds and kilos, so you can have your data presented in the format that you want. As you can see, it's got a nice clear screen display, and there you see the Wi-Fi indicator, so it can tell you when it's connected to the Wi-Fi or not. And then simply a question of standing on the scales and telling you, and there it is. Because I'm just using my hand, it doesn't know who I am, so what you can do is then add a particular user or flick through and find an existing user. The whole unit works on a sort of tap mechanic for sort of going through, cycling through people, and once you've finished the actual reading, at this point when it's stabilized, it then goes through the vitals at this point once it's identified who you are. So there you are. You can see I'm just flicking through now, so I could assign this to my wife or myself. Okay, so as I said, the scales are pretty nice actually. They are nice and solid. You feel fairly good that you're getting a good reading when you get onto them, yeah, I've been quite delighted with them. So that's the Garmin Index Connector scales, or smart scales I think they call them these days. I really like them. It's certainly done a lot of good for me in terms of keeping track of my weight management, and I would recommend them to anybody who uses Garmin Connect. If you're interested in having an automatic weight logging system, plus all the other metrics that can help you sort of understand a little bit more about your various vitals, then I would recommend them. They are a little bit more expensive, but I'm sure in time there'll probably be various deals on Amazon or wherever that will see that price come down. But even at 120, 130 quid, I think as a longer term investment, I think why not? It's hopefully worth the money. So yeah, I would say I would recommend these scales to people who fit that kind of profile.